It's Alex Espinoza with the Rickey Henderson of YouTube. This episode of the Rickey Report brought to you by Last Dive Bar. Use the promo code RickeyBlog and my affiliate link down below to help out your boy. If you use the code RickeyBlog at Last Dive Bar, you get 10% off. So it's a win-win for everybody. Let's jump into it. So each of the past 3 years, the A's have honored their Swingin' A's dynasty. Of course, the 72, 73, 74 A's won the World Series titles back to back to back, becoming the first team to do that in MLB history beyond the Yankees. And this Sunday, the A's hosted the 1974 World Championship team, and a huge crowd showed up at the Coliseum with about 18,500. It was their biggest crowd since the reverse boycott on June 7th. So a lot of fans were there, a lot of people were there. And before the game, NBC Sports California interviewed John Blue Moon Odom about his feelings about the Coliseum, and he couldn't really hide his emotion about just how sad he is about the team leaving Oakland.
I'm still hoping some way that Oakland can still stay here, because it means a lot to me and a lot of other players that I talk to. Wish that Oakland could keep the A's here. Going to Vegas and stuff like that is going to leave a lot of members, back here. It's not hitting too good on me, but I'm still going to have the members here.
And also the A's held about a 15-minute on-field ceremony before the game, and they hosted the players. They've been doing this. They introduced the players from the A's dugout. They come out, sit around the pitcher's mound, and have like a nice talk. Raleigh Fingers talked. And A's president Dave Kaval was conspicuously absent from the whole ceremony. And it makes you think of this tweet that he sent out in February when he was saying, "See you at the ballpark. It's going to be great to celebrate these 50-plus years of Oakland history at the Coliseum." So again, MIA. He's pretty much been MIA all season. I think the only public appearance he's made was at some event they had in March in Las Vegas at the ballpark, at the Las Vegas ballpark. So I can't recall seeing Dave Kaval at all at the Coliseum. And, just the fact that the A's leadership couldn't be there to honor and respect these guys. Like, okay, I get it. If you don't want to interact with your fans, okay, but these dudes are, these are royalty in the organization. You would think that Kaval would have showed up, or somebody would have showed their face to represent the A's. So, actually, there was somebody who did represent the A's, but it wasn't in a good light. This is A's Senior Director of Marketing, Vittorio De Bartolo. And something weird happened with De Bartolo and A's YouTuber Gabe Hernandez on Sunday. So Gabe's I've had him on the podcast a couple of times. We just had him on a couple of weeks ago. Super diehard A's fan. He's still paying to go to games this season, and he doesn't really talk a lot of trash on his YouTube. He's honest about the situation, but it's more of a lens of he's sad. He's not going to see his team ever win a World Series in Oakland. Like, Gabe is sad. He's not like an angry, raging A's fan. Super chill dude, very humble, and he's usually just filming stuff. He's trying to catch foul balls, get autographs and stuff. But I guess De Bartolo approached Gabe while he was collecting autographs at an event in Mount Davis. So the A's brought some alumni out to the game, out to Mount Davis during the game to sign autographs. And this is the first comment that Gabe said he heard from De Bartolo after he got autographs from Dick Green and Gene Tennis. I guess De Bartolo kind of told him passive-aggressively, "Oh, we appreciate your passion." Like, oh. So Gabe thought that was kind of weird. And they had another interaction a little bit later. As he waited for more player autographs, De Bartolo said, "Gabe, are you happy you met the players? Are you going to say something nice about us?" So this is where it starts to get kind of condescending and weird. A's director of marketing talking to one of their most public-facing fans who clearly loves the team, and he's like trying to get him to thank him for doing his job. I mean, that's literally what he's supposed to do. And especially given the fact that A's marketing and PR has been so bad at handling this transition from Oakland to Sacramento and Vegas, pretty much shown no love or emotion to these fans who have been supporting the team loyally for 56 years or however long they've been alive, So Gabe's a young guy still in his 20s, but yeah, he's a die-hard A's fan. And like he said, he never saw these guys play, but he wanted to meet them because they helped build this franchise, But then it got weirder too, So not only did he want Gabe to thank him for literally doing his job, he said, last thing he said, "I'm just joking with you, but just so you know, our bosses are human and have feelings too." Di Bartolo's boss is Catherine Aker, who is the VP of marketing and communications. And we've really only heard from her throughout this whole process. During the Nevada legislative meetings last year, ever since they announced the move to Vegas, she's been pretty much behind the scenes this whole time. And I think Di Bartolo really thought he was just making a harmless joke, but dude, it looks really bad to do what you're doing. You know, it's just not a good look for the A's. You know, just kind of like chastising one of their fans, like, oh, you're gonna talk nice when, dude, you guys haven't done anything nice for fans this whole process, you know? And Gabe, it's not like he's out there trying to stir shit up. Like, Gabe was just out there just doing his thing, you know? So for me, this kind of has the same energy as John Fisher's quote. Last year at the winter meeting, the Summer of Cell documentary, and some members of the Oakland 68s just went to the hotel and finally approached Fisher and said, you know, what are you doing? Like, what do you got to say to A's fans? And he said, oh, well, this has been harder on me than it has been for you, or something to that effect. And it's just, the A's just don't get it. They just really don't understand what's happening here. They're so out of touch, and so they just don't have a pulse on their fan base at all. And it's no reason why these fans are leaving and feeling so pissed off, you know. A's PR and marketing has certainly been worthy of criticism. I mean, yeah, sure, they are human beings, but they've been objectively bad at this since it started. You know, since this whole decision was made. And it's also worth noting, it's interesting, Di Bartolo, he worked with the Raiders from 2002 to 2021, so he was with them for their final, 16, 17 years in Oakland and their first couple years in Vegas. But the A's actually hired him in August 2022. And after the 2022 season, the A's, of course, cut ties with Last Dive Bar. So it really makes me think that the A's already knew back in 2022 that they were heading to Vegas, So, but like I said, A's PR marketing are really worthy of criticism since this whole thing went down. And they're in a public, if you're head of PR, it's called public relations. You got to deal with the public. And the way they've done it so far has been really bad. The fact that they turned off replies kind of shows you everything you need to know. I mean, if you're turning off replies, it's not the fans. I think you got to look in the mirror and be like, okay, what did we do wrong in this process? And this is just off the top of my head. I was just trying to think of all the PR faux pas they've done since announcing their deal in Vegas. First of all was the initial announcement. They said they had a binding land deal at the Wild Wild West site, kind of near the In-N-Out over there, west of the Strip. But supposedly, I think that was struck down by the Culinary Union, which is a really strong union down there. Just kind of rumblings I've heard on Twitter. And the A's had to refocus to a 9-acre site, which is on the Tropicana lot, which kind of clashes with some statements that Dave Kaval said immediately after the Wild Wild West site. As he said, oh, this is great for our Las Vegas residents, our locals who say, they want to have quick ingress and egress. But now they're on Tropicana Boulevard, which everybody likes to tout as one of the busiest intersections in the world. And there's not going to be much parking there who knows what's going to be there. I don't think anybody knows what's going to be there yet. Of course, they're knocking down the Tropicana, but as of now, the A's don't have a finalized location or anything, which makes the two renderings that they put out, completely useless. And speaking of renderings, of course, they accidentally published verbal renderings earlier this year of their new stadium on their official website. And then they had to scramble to send out actual renderings. And when they sent out those verbal renderings, they actually kind of told on themselves because, of course, back on December 1st, they announced that they were pushing back possible renderings and a press conference that was scheduled for December 4th due to the death of 2 police officers and Nevada state troopers, and they wanted to respect them. But of course, we didn't hear anything for 3 months, so I don't know if it just seemed like they used those 2 names of those state troopers for, I don't know, just to cover their own ass. And then once the season started, Right Field Will shared this photo of a piece of paper that was supposedly handed out to Coliseum employees that instructed them to actively not display things that said Oakland on them or display merchandise that said Oakland on it. So, and it just totally clashes with what Dave Kaval said in his tweet. Said, oh, we're going to celebrate 50 plus years in Oakland, And then they had to announce that they're going to Sacramento where they're going to play for 3 years. So they're going to be like a minor league product for 3 years.
But also being able to watch some of the greatest players in baseball, whether they be athletics players or Aaron Judge and others, launch home runs out of this very intimate, the most intimate ballpark in all of Major League Baseball for the next 3 years.
And I also thought it was interesting that the A's didn't acknowledge the 74 team at all on Twitter. Of course, they turned off their replies on everything, on Facebook and Instagram and even LinkedIn. You didn't see them acknowledge the 74 team on Twitter because that's where people can quote tweet them and get angry. So at this point, I think the A's are just trying to just get the hell out of here and just not post anything because they're worried about the backlash. But this is the bed that they created in the manner that they left. So I don't think these things are ever easy, but the A's could have showed a little bit more class throughout this whole process and extraction from Oakland. Again, the A's really haven't done any celebration like they said they were going to do. Cavill wasn't there to respect these legends, and then this interaction with Gabe was really weird to me, just given that Gabe is a weird target to pick, that he's been totally nice and just been kind of getting over his grief, and then you kind of call him out for this and ask him to thank you for doing your job. I mean, it's just another bad look for the A's and their PR team, and they just really have no idea what's going on in this situation. So, speaking of bad PR, Oakland is going through quite a bit right now. We finally heard from Sheng Thao on Monday morning for the first time since her house was raided by FBI agents last Thursday. And she didn't take questions. She had a 10-minute press conference where she kind of started out talking about the Juneteenth shooting where over a dozen people got shot in Oakland. She gave her condolences to those people and said Oakland will fully prosecute these people to the fullest extent of the law, and everybody knows that nothing's probably going to happen with that stuff. But anyways, she struck a really defiant tone, and she said she was blindsided by the 6 a.m. knocks at her door, and she said, why couldn't anybody tell me this ahead of time? Sounded like she was completely blindsided by that. So it sounded like she was in the house with her child, and she tried to appeal to other people who have been mistreated by police. She also made multiple references to conservative billionaires in Piedmont and San Francisco who are trying to push a right-wing agenda against left-wing Oakland. But it's, I don't know. So I don't want to get too political here. I don't want to turn this into an Oakland politics podcast, but I just kind of want to update people on what she said. But it doesn't sound like she's going to be resigning anytime soon because she's really steadfast in her innocence. She said that this has nothing to do with her. But I wouldn't be surprised if the investigation starts focusing on her boyfriend, Andre Jones, who he's a former chief of staff for Rebecca Kaplan when supposedly... I believe I read that Sheng Thao was an intern on Rebecca Kaplan's staff around the same time. And what's interesting is that Sheng Thao's former chief of staff, Rickey Webb, recently spoke to CBS here in the Bay Area. And, she resigned in early 2023 because she was worried about a pay-for-play scheme that was developing under Thao. I guess Webb was the head of Thao's, whole campaign. She kind of helped her on board and get everything. But a couple months later, people started coming up to her, asking for appointments, asking for money, and she didn't feel comfortable with it, so she resigned, and she brought up her complaints with the Public Ethics Commission, and she recently spoke to CBS 5 and had some really interesting comments, but it sounds like this might come back to Jones here eventually.
I had found out that Andre, her boyfriend, was promising people jobs in our administration, promising people appointments on different commissions and boards from out of the mouths of people that told me they were promised positions. And her response to me was, just ignore Andre. You're going to be making close to $200,000. Just ignore it. And it just hurt my heart.
And some more news broke on Monday afternoon as Dan Noyes of ABC7 reported that Tony Brass, the attorney for Sheng Thao, has withdrawn from representing her during this whole investigation, and he was brought on last week after her house got raided. Later on, Valena Jones of NBC Bay Area reported that it was actually Sheng Thao's decision to part ways with Tony on Saturday, and this was her quote to Jones: "I appreciate Tony Brass for providing me with initial legal guidance. He helped me better understand the investigation and my legal options. Over the weekend, I obtained new legal counsel and thank Mr. Brass for his counsel." So again, I don't know if this has any bearing on the A's. At this point, I think they're out the door, and I really can't see any scenario beyond the 1 in a million chance that John Fisher has to sell the team, and Joe Lacob buys them and brings them back to Oakland. But even still, I don't know at this point. I think it's more likely that the A's stay up in Sacramento and the Giants get the Bay Area to themselves. So, but she's out the door, I think, and if she's still here in November, I would be very shocked. Of course, she's facing a recall election, which she also tried to denounce as like a sham or a fraud. I forget the word she used, but she tried to dismiss the recall election and slip in some digs at Seneca Scott, who is kind of leading that. So that's your Sheng Thao update. I probably won't be touching this topic again unless she resigns, but even still, I think at this point probably won't be talking about Sheng Thao anymore on the Rickey Report. So on to a new topic. The A's going to Sacramento. Chris Biederman of the Sacramento Bee recently spoke to some A's players and Mark Kotsay about the decision for Sutter Health Park to get synthetic turf next year. It makes sense, of course. The A's are playing there, and the River Cats are going to be playing there. And as Biederman noted, there's could be 156 home dates. Basically almost every day, 156 home dates in about 6 months' time. So in about 180 days, where it doesn't make it reasonable to have natural grass. But as Biederman noted, there's about six. I believe there's six, ballparks that have synthetic grass right now, but Sutter Health Park would be the only one without a roof, like a retractable roof or a dome. For this story, Biederman talked to Zach Geloff, who's A's player rep, and also Brent Rooker and Mark Kotsay. And here's some quotes from Geloff. He said, "It seems like everything's on track to be ready. It should be, and it should be adequate for being a big league facility at least." And that's similar to what Brent Rooker said. He said, there's going to be a game on that field every day for an entire summer. So that's impossible to keep up with the grounds crew. So they realize the reality of the situation, and it doesn't seem like, they really can't do anything. They're not going to be talking too much about this. And, Kase also had a pretty much, this isn't our decision, this is above my pay grade kind of a thing. They just want to play baseball. But again, I feel kind of bad for these guys. They worked so hard to get to the big leagues and have that big league atmosphere. And now they got to go back to the AAA level with their careers again for at least half their season. And probably won't feel like home that entire time that they're there. I feel like they're going to be on the road, for the whole time. So it's just a further reminder that the A's are going to be basically a minor league franchise for the next 3 years, and supposedly they're going to field a competitive team with a competitive payroll in 2028. Doesn't make much sense to me. I don't know why MLB is allowing this. I was at the game on Friday. They actually won. It was a pretty entertaining game, decent crowd. It was fun. Shea Langoliers had a late 2-run homer to give the A's a 6-5 win. That was pretty cool. Shea's got, I think he's up to 14 dingers on the year, tied with Adley Rutschman for the most by catchers. And Mason Miller came in later to close it out with a 7-pitch, 3-out inning real quick. And check out this nasty changeup that he did to end it. According to Baseball Savant, he's thrown 3 changeups this year, but I don't recall seeing it before. And this thing was disgusting. It was 93, so about 9 miles off his fastball, and just completely falls off the table here. It's a disgusting pitch. So I remember he was tinkering with a pitch called a splinker, like a splitter sinker, but goodness, that changeup was filthy. So, and here's just another look at Mason Miller's Baseball Savant page because it's awesome. So, so that was their only win. Then they lost the next 2 games, and they're still in last place in the American League West. But they also made some other notable roster moves as they traded J.D. Davis to the Yankees for a 2018 first-rounder named Jordan Groshans, who's expected to be everyday shortstop at AA Midland for now, according to Mark Kotsay. Right-handed reliever Vinny Natoli was also DFA'd after posting a 2.25 ERA in 7 games with the A's this season, and he passed through waivers and was outrighted to AAA, but he actually declined the assignment and elected free agency instead, which I thought was really interesting, given the fact that Natoli's 33-year-old kind of journeyman. He's kind of had 4 little auditions in the big leagues. You would think that he would want to stick around, but it's also worth noting that Seth Brown, who actually last week did accept an outright assignment to AAA, he was named AAA Player of the Week after he batted .444 with 3 dingers and 7 runs in his first 4 games with the Aviators. And last but not least, the A's players want baby possums. Now, A's right-hander Ross Stripling recently spoke with Foul Territory TV. I guess the A's players are making jokes about adopting baby possums.
maybe try and rip off a chair seat or something? Or have you thought about what you might want to take before the season ends?
Yeah, I mean, the ongoing joke is to find one of these like baby possums that are inevitably running around somewhere and, raise it to adulthood and give it a good life.
And of course, possums have been a part of the A's press box culture and just the Coliseum lore the past few years, that they poke their head out every now and then in the press box and stuff like that. But it's also interesting to hear his perspective. Of course, A's fans are super wrapped up in the emotion of the season, but A's players are just trying to get through it. They're right around the halfway mark of the season. And this is what he had to say about, because I think the conversation was started because Chris Bassett put some dirt in his pocket, and this is what he had to say about that too. I thought it was interesting how it sounds like the A's really don't care, but he understands why Bassett does.
So you saw Bassett is the one that you're talking about where he, dipped down and pulled some dirt as he finished the 8th inning in the Coliseum, where he's had like a 2.2 ERA in his career. It was like a Saving Private Ryan kind of moment where in the dugout we were like, what the heck was that? I've never seen that before. He just pocketed some dirt, and then you kind of think about it, and then he obviously comments on it after the field, and you're like, actually, that was pretty cool. In the locker room, I would say we haven't really discussed it yet. I think we're kind of like day to day trying to grind through the season and just kind of, aware that this is likely in our last hurrah in the Coliseum here. And we got some guys like Paul Blackburn that have actually spent a decent amount of time here, Seth Brown, et cetera, who, probably is more meaningful that this is like where their career got off the ground and they're about to leave it. A lot of us are just, grinding through the season here, kind of coming up on the halfway point and not necessarily thinking about that too much. But when Bassett does something like that, who you can just tell is like a thoughtful, cerebral dude, and he takes the time to do something like that, kind of shows you that we're coming to an end of an era.
Stripling is right, though. I just went back and looked at the 2022 roster, just 2 years ago to see how much turnover there's been, and it's pretty remarkable. Now that Nick Allen and Seth Brown are down to AAA, the only players who are currently on the roster right now who are also on the team in 2022 are Paul Blackburn, Shea Langoliers, and JP Sears. So it's like dog years with the A's, in really short time. So, I understand, a lot of players don't have that deep emotional connection with Oakland, or it wasn't that place where they launched their careers. They were just trying to stay in the bigs and give them their best opportunity to stay in the bigs, So... But who does care is A's fans. And always wrap this thing up with a look at the sell flag movement. And of course, last week we highlighted how Stephen Layton, A's fan, JVB43 on Twitter, started this cool sell flag map. And it's up to 525 pins now, 39 states, 34 countries and territories, 6 continents. The only one that's missing is Antarctica, so I'm sure they'll get there eventually. But really, this thing is cool. I'll leave the link in the description. It's fun to just kind of poke around, take a look at it. So 39 out of 50 states, 34 countries. The thing is pretty cool. And make sure to use the code use the code RickeyBlog at Last Dive Bar to get 10% off. Use the affiliate link down below to help your boy. All right, thanks a lot. I'll be at the Bees game tomorrow night. They're back with a 6-game homestand. And then on Saturday, the Last Dive Bar is also taking over Raimondi Park they're going to have like a tribute to the Coliseum night on Saturday, because that's when the Ballers were initially supposed to play at the Coliseum. But of course the A's had the right to turn down any other baseball team playing there, and they did. All right, so I'll be at the ballpark on Tuesday and Saturday. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you at the ballpark soon.